Welcome to the podcast of Toxic Till the End. Today's episode is going to be a bit of an interesting one. I'm talking about friendships, the ones that you think will last forever. But sometimes, no matter how close you were, things can shift in ways you never expected. And that's exactly what happened with me and my best friends. So grab a drink, get comfy, and let me take you through the story. I was 7 years old when I met Annie. We were at a church and it was a pretty small congregation. So we were the only kids there. And every Sunday after service, while the grown-ups were in their after-church meetings, Annie, her sister Shelby, and I would head to the gymnasium to play. No phones, no distractions, just our imagination. And man, did we have an imagination. We were like the kings and queens of that gymnasium, running around, pretending to be superheroes, doing cartwheels, and just being wild kids. So the 90s were great for that. There was no texting, no Snapchat, no TikTok, our ideas, and a big empty space to let them loose. But as the years went by, things changed because more families came to church, which meant more kids. And at first, that was exciting, but as the numbers grew, Annie and I started to kind of drift apart. So a new family joined our church, and the girl from that family, her name was Layla. And let's be honest, she made an impression. She had that big personality, the kind of girl who walks into a room and everyone turns to look. She was confident, sassy, and just loud in a way that made her the center of the attention. And of course, she and Annie hit it off right away. I wasn't alone for long because I started making new friends at church and things felt okay. But the more friends I made, the more distant Annie and I became. So, yeah, it wasn't anyone's fault. It just happened. So, Layla became the it girl at church with her big personality. And while her sassiness made her stand out, it also made me uneasy because she wasn't exactly kind to me, and I could tell she had a preference for who she liked. So if you were pretty and popular, you were in her circle. But for me, I did not quite fit into her mold, and I often felt like I was on the outside looking in. But despite her attitude, I chose to make nice with her because that's how I was raised, to treat others kindly, no matter how they treated you. So I tolerated her little digs and tried to befriend her for Annie's sake. But deep down, I just wanted to reconnect with my best friend. Layla, on the other hand, didn't make it easy. She was downright mean at times, but I reminded myself that if I wasn't doing this for her, I was doing this to keep a connection with Annie. And over time, Layla seemed to soften towards me, and eventually we grew fond of each other. And it wasn't perfect, but it worked well enough. So fast forward, Layla, Annie, and I, we were inseparable. Like, especially when it came to singing, because all three of us loved to sing, and whenever the church had special events or singing opportunities, we were always the first to sign up. And people started to call us the Charlie's Angels of the church, which we secretly loved. So the summer I turned 12, a big revival was happening at our church. Layla, Annie, and I decided to perform a special song for the revival. And it was a huge deal to us, so we wanted to make it perfect. So we planned to get together and practice a song. So one afternoon, when Layla called me up, she said she was going swimming at her house. So she was inviting me, Annie, and a few more guests to come along. We swam, and it was all fun because the weather was perfect and we were all just being kids. After the swim, we headed inside to Layla's basement to practice for the revival. We had a song that we were going to perform, and Annie and Layla had already practiced the song a few times. So they were prepared. But for me, I did not know the song. I haven't heard the song. And if I don't know about you, but to catch up on something last minute, you know that feeling of stress, trying to get it together, trying to look like you have it all together, and not looking like you're a failure. So I was scrambling to figure out the melody in my head, but the nerves kicked in and I just couldn't get it right. So Layla and Annie could see it and they were starting to get frustrated with me. So I was feeling embarrassed and I felt like I had to catch up, but I just couldn't. And then after a few tries, they just told me to take the CD home and practice it on my own time. And I grabbed my stuff and just left. Instead of going straight home, I ended up at my friend Katie's house. So Katie, she was a bit older than me. She was the same age as Shelby, which was Annie's sister. And she had also came to swim at Layla's house. So after the swim and the singing practice, her and I decided to hang out together. And that's where things got a little complicated. When I got to her house, I realized that I forgot the CD at Layla's house. So Katie, being the good friend she was, offered to go back to grab the CD for me. So after she returned, she said, "Hey, I'll leave the CD on my computer desk in their little landing area of their house." And it was no big deal, right? So I figured, okay, great, I'll grab it before I go home. But when I went to get the CD, it was gone. And I checked everywhere on the desk, under the desk, around, everywhere. And I even asked Katie's brother if he had seen it. But he was like, "No, I don't know where it is." So Katie and I searched high and low, but it was like the CD vanished in thin air. And this was the moment I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to be so angry at me. Because I had lost the CD and I had no idea how I was going to explain to them. And I could already hear and feel their anger just thinking about it. So, and the fact that I didn't want to face them about it because in the beginning, I couldn't even get the song down. So, yeah, the guilt was hitting me hard. So, I did what any kid would do. I decided to avoid the situation. I told Katie, I was like, I'll come back the next day, search for the CD. So I'm just gonna leave this all behind me for now. So my mom picked me up and then I went home. Then the next day, I went back to Katie's house and I searched everywhere, but the CD was nowhere. It's nowhere to be found. I even asked Katie's brother multiple times. I'm like, "Hey, have you seen the CD? Are you sure you didn't take it? Are you sure you didn't see it?" And his answer was, "No, I don't know where it's at." I had no luck. Katie and I searched everywhere and it was gone. So, since I had no luck in finding it, I decided to call Layla's house. And I knew that Annie was going to be at Layla's house that day, so of course, I called her home phone. And back then, we didn't have cell phones, so we only used home phones to call each other. And I told them everything. I confessed to them that I had lost the CD, that I don't know where it's at, and they were furious. I could hear it in their voices, especially Layla, because she was so upset and I just didn't know how to handle it. So I gave the phone over to Katie. And Katie then talked to Zyla, which was Layla's older sister. And Zyla and Katie are the same age as well. So they were taking over the conversation. And Zyla said to Katie that I had to replace the CD because I was the one who lost it. The problem was that I didn't have money. I was just 12 years old. I didn't have money. And I told him that I would need to wait for my mom to buy it. But by then, the damage was done. So what was I supposed to do after that? Following that, I experienced the worst part of it, which was the bullying that they did to me online. So back then, if you're a 90s kid, you might know the chatting system, which was called MSN Messenger. It's like a Facebook Messenger type thing. And Layla and Annie got on MSN Messenger and they just took turns insulting me. So Layla would say something mean to me, and then I'd respond, and then she'd copy and paste my messages over to Annie, and they were ganging up on me. And I couldn't do anything about it because this is all done online. And I felt so hurt, betrayed, and most of all, I felt unheard because it was just one-sided for them. They had their mindset on what they believed in, and so whatever I said did not even cross their minds. Because all that happened, I stopped going out. And I stopped attending the youth gatherings, and I even skipped the revival practices. So, yeah, it got real ugly, and I didn't want to be around them. On one random Sunday during Sunday school, the youth president, he gave out this huge lecture. He was disappointed in certain people, and he was saying how there are drama within people and some people are not attending the practices, and I was one of those people. So after that, I was like, okay, maybe I should start attending because the revival is a big thing. Fast forward 2 weeks before the revival, I got a call from Layla and Annie, and they wanted to end the friendship with me. The reason was because of what our youth president said. That made them feel like they were the bad guys in the situation, and they just wanted to move on from me, and they wanted to be just the two of them. Of course, I tried to explain to them. I even apologized, but they had already made up their minds. And in that moment, I realized how influenced Layla had on Annie, because I knew for a fact that Annie wouldn't have treated me this way if it wasn't for Layla. But, the damage was done. It was what it was, and that was it. Our friendship was over. So, yeah, that was the end of it. And, sometimes friendships shift in ways that you don't see coming. One day you're best friends, and then the next you're strangers. I still think about those days, about how things could have been different, but you just try to learn from it and grow. So, the thing about friendships is that it evolves, just like in every aspects in your life. And it's easy to blame or feel like we're unworthy when someone decides to walk away, but the truth is, your worth isn't defined by someone else's decision, and it's defined by how you choose to show up for yourself. So, this experience taught me something valuable, which is sometimes losing people creates space for better things to come, like for new friendships, personal growth, the realization that not every loss is meant to break you. So if you're going through this same thing, what I went through, I want to remind you that you are stronger than you think. And yeah, it hurts to lose people, but that's what's meant for you. And you will never miss it. And if you can take the lessons from these moments, like the heartbreaks, the mistakes, the growing pains, you'll come out of it stronger and wiser and better prepared to welcome the right people into your life. So don't be afraid to let go of what's toxic. And the only thing you can do is to move forward and rewrite your story, because you're not defined by what you've lost, but by how you rise after the fall. So yeah, you've got this. Just keep going, keep growing, and trust the brighter days that are ahead, because even when friendships end, new beginnings are always around the corner. So yeah, that is all for today's episode on Toxic Till the End. Thank you for coming along on this journey with me. It means so much to have you here. And if today's story resonated with you or brought up some memories of your own, I'd love to hear from you. Seriously. And leave a comment wherever you're listening. Your support helps this podcast grow and to reach more people who might need to hear these stories. So until next time, take care of yourselves, and remember, it's okay to let go of what no longer serves you. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on Toxic Till the End.